Welcome to the Zayari Wellness Podcast, where we learn about other people's journeys. Regardless of age, race, religion, or status, we're all just human and have one thing in common: the ups and downs of life. Join me in welcoming our special guest, Darius, as we explore what it means to be high-functioning autistic and Black.
My name is Darius Ford, and I am a high functioning autistic adult. And I wanted to, have this interview to kind of shed some light on high functioning autism as an adult, and kind of as a black male as well, because it's very interesting in our community, mental health.
To say the least, right?
Yes, extremely interesting. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So can you explain what is high functioning autism and
yeah.
how it looked like for you growing up, or perhaps like what made you want to see if you can get a diagnosis?
So high functioning autism would be diagnosed with autism, but you don't require as much support as someone who is, uh, I don't like saying that, but lower functioning, I guess. And for me, growing up, like everything was really, I always knew something was off, if that makes sense. I always knew something was off with me socially.
Okay.
Like, I just, I couldn't understand social cues. I didn't understand why people did X. I still don't. That never changed. I still
Can you
don't.
give an example? Like,
Yeah. So let's say grocery stores, right?
okay.
Common behavior in a grocery store is like someone sits there, they browse, they do this and that. But when
Mhm.
I'm in the grocery store, I'm like borderline furious because I don't understand why you have your plan to go get peanut butter. Why do you have to read all the peanut butters? Just grab one and get out of the store. And it's just social stuff like that and conversations. I don't do small talk. I don't
Mhm.
see a point in it. I can't understand it. It's like if someone comes to speak with me, it's like, okay, get to the point. And it makes people with high functioning autism look rude, but we're not rude.
Mhm.
We don't understand
Mhm.
that area of socializing. It's really hard.
Yeah, so for you, it's more because, autism presents differently for everybody. For some people, it
Hmm.
could be like, overstimulation. We talk about
Yeah,
like touch and body. We talk about conversations, perhaps
yeah.
like you talk about social reasonings. And then there's also the cognitive or like the mental processing and stuff like that. And so
Hmm.
I want to let the audience know a little bit. Darius and my husband are like best friends, right? And
Yep.
so
Hmm.
um, you guys have an interesting dynamic because I know that you said you don't like small talk, but you and him, like you guys talk about stuff and you go at it and it's deep. So
Yeah.
can you explain a little bit about like, does it mean that you just don't talk to people, or tell me a little bit more about that?
No, it depends on the relationship that I
Mhm.
have with the person. So if it's a random person, I will. I'm too nice to just push somebody away and just say like, "Don't talk to me." But if it's
Mhm.
a random stranger and they're trying to have small talk with me, outwardly I'm participating, but inwardly I'm sweating. I can't wait for them to leave. I'm like, this is the worst thing in existence right now. And I get uncomfortable. And
Mm.
there's just so many thoughts going on in my head. And I can't for the life of me understand why somebody would want to talk to me about nothing. But to them, they're not talking about nothing. But to me, socially, it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. So
Yeah.
it depends on the relationship for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would like to say that you're a very intelligent individual.
Thank you.
I know the type of conversations that you do like to have, and um, I would like to help perhaps like bridge a gap for our
Hmm.
audience. Can you explain to people how being autistic doesn't mean that you're necessarily less intelligent or
Right.
educated?
Yeah,
Because
so
you're a man of many trades.
yeah. I think I think autism I don't look at it as a disability, right? I look at it as played out as this might sound like kind of like a superpower. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
there's things that autistic people can do that the neurotypical would take them a really long time. Like I
Mhm.
taught myself to play piano in under a year
Yeah.
just because I was interested in it. And I taught myself how to make video games, how to produce music. Like all of these things that take a really long time, I accomplished them in under a year, each skill. And I look at it as a benefit, because the truth of the matter is high functioning autistic people, we're not disabled. We just see the world differently and we move differently. Now, I will say, socially, I definitely think there's a deficit.
Okay.
But as far as overall, I don't think it's a disability. It's more of a benefit sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think, oh, and he's also a chef, guys. Like he loves to
Oh
cook.
yeah, I went to culinary school.
I love it. That's why I say you're a man of many trades. I think that Darius is a very, very diverse person. I think when we first met, I would have never guessed you were autistic, and I am a therapist, right? And so, and then
Right.
after a while, getting to know you, I was like, oh, okay, I can see, the
Right.
small things that perhaps like a person that doesn't know what they're looking for
Hmm.
may not realize, and they might be like you said, oh, he's just rude, or he
Yeah.
doesn't like
Yeah.
doing these things, um, things like eye contact. Can you tell
Hmm.
the audience
Oh my gosh.
about
Uh,
eye contact?
I don't know if you can see my where I'm looking now, but I'm all over the place. I can't even. I don't think that's something that I'm ever gonna break.
Mhm,
I've come up with ways to alleviate that. I don't know if you're familiar with the term stimming in the
mhm,
autistic community. It's like it stands for stimulation, and I'll do this thing where I'll blink really hard, right? And it because I have like a physical discomfort when I make eye contact, and I
mhm,
can't focus on anything else if that's happening. So I do this thing where I blink really hard, and it makes people think I have something in my eye, but it's I don't, and it's just a way to kind of like break uh eye contact. And I also kind of do it when I get overstimulated. So it's
mhm.
like I'll do the blink really hard thing. I'll touch my face a lot, or if it gets really bad, I'm sure you've seen autistic people like flap their hands
Mhm.
or whatever. I'll end up doing that, or it's just yeah, eye contact is a no no. That's a
Yeah.
no no.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, okay, so this is where I guess upbringing comes into play because eye contact,
Hmm.
especially minority households, if you don't look at
Yeah.
me when you're in trouble, you are being disrespectful.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about that dynamic and growing up in a Black home where
Yeah.
that was a thing?
I didn't really get chastised too much for that. But I was definitely shown that eye contact is a sign of respect. And
Right.
most of the people in my life that I know are like way older than me. I'm talking 60s, 70s years old,
Mhm.
and you know how they were raised, eye contact, eye contact. So when I don't do it, it could be looked at as a sign of disrespect.
Right.
Um, but it's not. Yeah, it's just a comes with the territory.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Hmm.
also, what the audience may not know is that you also have a family. And so,
I
talking
do.
about,
Yeah.
social awkwardness, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in marriage and having children and all of that fun stuff?
So this is a interesting conversation to have, because when I was growing up, like I said, I always knew something was off, right? But I did this thing that I now know is called masking,
Hmm.
uh, where I faked it till I made it, right? I
Hmm.
just observed society around me and I acted like them, and I was able to blend in. So when I met my wife, she had no idea that I had autism. To be fair, for transparency, y'all, I didn't find out till I was 29, and I met my wife way earlier than that. So
Hmm.
she didn't know that I had it. I didn't know I had it, but I just faked it till I made it. I just saw what other people did, and I was like, okay, note taken, do that, say this, move this way, dress like this, and that's just what I did up until I found out I was autistic. And then I was like, it's time to stop faking. I want to be me now, because I know that this is me. So Yeah, and as far as having a family, it does make it difficult because autistic people tend to have an issue with overstimulation
Hmm.
and with noise, sights, smells. My biggest one is smells and noise, and
Hmm.
you can't get away from either one of those things. So oftentimes I spend my days overstimulated, stressed out, and just tired because of that. So it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah. So what does that mean being overstimulated by noise and sound, and how does that affect you on a daily basis?
Well, it's like, without getting too complicated, it's like certain frequencies of sound. It
Hmm.
overloads my mind, and I can't focus. I have a hard enough time focusing as it is. So when I hear like a certain sound, like one of my dogs, Stella, right? She's a husky, so she whimpers at a certain pitch, and
Hmm.
it like burrows into my brain. It doesn't bother anyone else in the house but me, and it's debilitating. Now with smells, if I smell something bad or something that I don't like, it floods my brain with too much stimulation, and then I get a physical reaction from it. I start freaking out, and I again, it takes my focus away completely, and it presents itself as agitation and anger, but
Yeah.
it's not either of those things. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned like being stressed, and sometimes like when you are stressed, like it looks like agitation because it's like, "Ah, I just
yeah,
I just want things to slow down for a little bit," but
yeah.
you have a kid and you have dogs and you have
Mm-hmm.
people that want
Yep,
your attention.
yep.
And so how hard has it been for you to kind of like learn these things about yourself, and has it created any conflict in your relationships?
It's been extremely hard, and it has created conflict in relationships because, like for example, me and my wife, right? After my diagnosis, she kind of got a little frustrated with me because she said that I changed. But the thing about it is, once I figured out that I was diagnosed, I had become more comfortable
Hmm.
with being who I didn't have to mask anymore. Right. I
Hmm.
didn't like, I knew what was wrong now. And I was able to say, okay, I'm just going to be me. And this is how it is. Like,
Hmm.
I have autism. So I do weird stuff sometimes. And, now, as far as learning goes, now this is where I kind of have an issue with being a high functioning autistic adult. There's not enough support for
Hmm.
us as adults.
Hmm.
So it was really difficult to learn about how to manage. And
Hmm.
I don't want to ramble too long, but I'll share this with you. My diagnosis story. So I figured out, I think I was like playing Xbox or something, and I noticed that I was getting upset about something small, and I was like, "Why do I feel like I have to be perfect at this?" And I realized that it was a big part of my life, like competing and perfecting things, and like I played soccer growing up, and I
Hmm.
managed to get to semi-pro soccer, and I was just always about competing and perfection. So I started looking stuff up,
Yeah.
and I saw a lot of stuff about autism and how they tend to be perfectionists. So I went to go get diagnosed, and they had me doing, when I tell you this was silly, they had me doing little kid, like they set they gave me dolls, right?
Yeah.
Dolls. And they were like, make up a plot for these dolls. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm like 29. Like, what are we doing? And then after the dolls, they gave me a storybook with no words, just pictures of like bunny rabbits and stuff, like for like 4-year-olds. And they were like, create a story about this book. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't have any resources for adults. You have to test me like you test elementary school children.
Yeah.
And so my learning process was basically reading other autistic adults' testimonies online and
Hmm.
figuring out like, hey, I'm literally reading my life story back to me.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting the diagnosis because that's all I had to go off of. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you shared that story because I think a lot of people perhaps go like undiagnosed, especially when they're
Mm-hmm.
high functioning, because
Yeah.
you seem to kind of fit in. It's not something that sticks out a lot. You just get
Yeah.
frustrated easily. You don't like
Mm-hmm.
sounds. You like, let's talk about routine.
Yeah. That's That's one that the routine is, if anyone's watching this that's not autistic, don't break an autistic person's routine if you can help it. Don't do
Mhm.
it, because that's our sense of normalcy. Like, I wake up every day around 7 to 7:30. My first stop is coffee. If I don't get the coffee, then the day is like off. And then
Mhm.
everything has its place, everything has its time. Like even these books behind me. Like I have, like, if a book is in the wrong spot, like that's a problem. I gotta
Mhm.
fix that. Um Clothing. Like you've seen me quite frequently like hoodies and sweatpants. That's
Yeah.
if I
It's
wear
your comfort
jeans,
zone.
yeah, like if I wear jeans, it's too much stimulation. The feeling of the denim is it's terrible. So that falls into routine, and I gotta have that. I have to have routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, seeing that you were diagnosed later at
Hmm.
29,
Yeah.
did you share with your family? And what were their thoughts about you being autistic?
Um, I think I told my mom and my brother,
Mhm.
um, and I don't exactly remember what they said, but my mom was she told me when I was younger they had me tested for like ADHD, I think, and
Yes.
I came back, negative for that. But
Mhm.
I don't remember what she said. I remember more so like friends' responses. Like they were all like, "Yeah, I can tell," like I know. But as my family, they didn't really say too much because, like I said, I mean, in the black community, it's like, nah, black people don't have mental health
Ain't nothing wrong with
problems.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we we just never addressed it.
Really? Do you think, like, growing up, maybe there were, standards that you were held to that may have been unrealistic now for knowing what your diagnosis is?
Um yeah, I think academically, for
Mm,
sure, because I had like the worst time in school, and it wasn't for a lack of trying. There was just certain things that my brain just doesn't work with. And then there's other things that my brain like excels with like very well.
mhm,
And I struggle really bad in like classroom settings. So
mhm,
school was a nightmare because I don't know. It's just socially, I could never understand why we all had to sit in rows and I
yeah,
had to ask to go to the bathroom. I got to raise my hand to ask questions. Like I just have to
mhm,
sit there and get this person to talk to me and I'm supposed to just get it. And it's like
mhm,
it never messed with me. Had I found out when I was a child, I think I would have had resources in place to help me do better in school, but I didn't know. So
mhm,
I had to do what I guess I had to do. I mean, I had decent grades. It's just
mhm,
certain subjects that I still struggle with math really bad.
mhm,
Um Not like basic math. Like basic math, I get it. You know what I mean? But like it's once it gets a little more advanced and stuff, I have trouble with that still. But on the other hand, I'm like extremely good at grammar, sentence
mhm.
structure, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Language arts, all of that. I'm really good with that, but numbers, no.
absolutely. And what do you think are some of the biggest impacts that you've had in your life by
Hmm.
because you were undiagnosed for such a long time?
Um, I think a lot of social misunderstandings would not have happened in
Okay.
my life. So
How
like
so?
I got bullied a lot like in middle school and even some in high school, and I think things would have been different had I understood why I was the way that I was.
Mhm,
And I just would have I think I would have reacted a lot different and I wouldn't have been so hard on myself because it did bring a lot of depression through my teenage years and early adult life because I just I couldn't for the life of me figure out like why am I so weird, but I get it
mm.
now so I'm not worried about it, but back
Yeah.
then it was pretty bad.
Yeah, so it caused sometimes, like, for you to not feel accepted by
Yeah.
others, and then,
Yeah.
led you to have depression. Like, how was it dealing with that and toggling between that? Because, I know too that
you were also in the military. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. You can't be in the military and have autism, right? But you
Nobody
were.
knew.
So, can you
Yep.
tell us a little bit about that story? And, military is very routine. So in a way, I can see
Yeah.
how it might have been a very good thing, but in other
hmm
ways, they can definitely uproot your life completely
Yeah.
and can be also
So
very triggering.
with that, man, I know God has a plan for sure, and there's a huge reason why I didn't get diagnosed when I was younger. Because
Mhm,
now that I was in the military, my family is set for life, pretty
mhm,
much.
mhm,
But had I been diagnosed before, I would have never gotten into the military. But I digress. So yeah, the military was interesting. The routine, amazing. I loved it. When I went, like, because when I was in basic, I was one of the older guys, right?
mhm,
Everyone else was like young, just out of high school, or 17 or whatever. And they were all acting a fool. They were upset about this, upset about that. And I'm like, y'all don't understand that this is literally like the easiest thing. Like, we don't have to think. Like,
right.
just do what they tell you to do. We have times to eat, to read. We're gonna go shoot at this time. The routine was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah.
However, the social aspect, like once I got to AIT and things loosen up a little bit,
Mhm,
the social aspect kind of kicks in. So I almost got into like, a few scuffles with people because the way they would behave, I didn't get it. So I
mhm.
would just like spaz out. And that was younger me. I'm calm now. But I would just like spaz out. And there was a couple of times where I almost got into a fight with people because I didn't get why they were doing this or why they were doing that. And then they're looking at
Mhm.
me like, yo, this guy's wilding out. And I'm like, I'm not trying to. I don't know. It's just military was good, but there were aspects that I struggled with greatly. But
Yeah, absolutely. So it has played a role in like your professional life in a way,
yeah.
to where maybe it was like people would perceive you maybe have an attitude or being confrontational, I guess you can say, if that's the correct word.
Yeah. Well, not as much confrontational, but standoffish.
There
I
you go.
think
Yeah.
because I would try and distance myself. After a while, I kind of realized like, okay, you know what, something's really off. Just distance yourself from certain people and
Hmm.
cling to the people that you know. Like, there's a
Hmm.
reason I've had the same friends since I was like 14.
Yeah.
Like, I'm I'm always on no new friends status because I know these people understand me and I don't have to
Mhm.
explain myself to them. Shoot, they're probably like me. They just don't know it. But
Are you
uh,
talking about my husband?
yeah, you might want to
I
go
caught
get
that. I caught that. We joke about it all the time, right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
tell like you're borderline autistic, like you need to get tested. And you know how he is, like, no, I'm not doing any of
yeah,
that. But
yeah. He,
it's funny that you mentioned that because that is something that I've talked to him about, and I understand that he expresses himself very differently
yeah,
because he's very high functioning, college educated, also went to the military, but
yep.
break his routine, he's gonna be in a bad mood,
It's
right?
over
Like
with. It's over with. I get it.
the
Yeah,
noise, how I guess we would be considered loud, Hispanics, blacks, and I'm Hispanic, right?
right.
And I just laugh loud and I would do
hmm
this thing where I would clap. Like when I would laugh, like right. And my husband would look at me. You know how the look, he'd be
Yeah,
like, what is wrong with you?
yeah, yeah.
And so that's been an adjustment for me too. But I like that you mentioned your support system, right? Because
hmm
um how isolating can it be when other people don't understand you and perhaps
Yeah.
give you a label because of
hmm
how you naturally are?
It's it was way more isolating. I would say in the past than it is now because now I enjoy the isolation to whereas
Mhm.
before I wanted to be a part of, you know, I wanted to have a social life. But now
Mhm.
I'm comfortable where I am. Like I have my family, I got my friends, and I'm fine in that circle. But it can be very isolating because, like, say for example, family events, right? It's the holiday
Mhm.
season.
Oh yeah.
Holidays are always very stressful for me because we're always having to go from here to there, and I'm sitting in a house. Like, I'll go to my in-laws, right? And they're German, they're loud, so that's okay though. But it's really loud, and I'm there all day. So when
Yeah.
I go home, I pass out. And
Hmm.
it's like, it's not because I just want to go to sleep and not enjoy family time. It's just my brain is so overloaded. It kind of feels like it's like the headache sensation without the pain. Like, my head is throbbing. It feels like my brain is swelling up, and it's just
Yeah.
the only thing that fixes it is just go to sleep.
It's interesting that you mentioned like mental exhaustion equates
Hmm.
sometimes to physical exhaustion as
Yeah.
well. And so I would bet to say that it would be a lot more isolating if you didn't have your wife and your kids and your
Yes.
support
Yeah.
system. So, like, what word of advice would you give people that perhaps think they're high functioning autistic, but
Yeah.
don't necessarily have the support that you do?
Well, first I would say, if you think you're a high functioning autistic person, um, seek the diagnosis, because you have no idea how comforting it is to finally know what the deal is. A lot of people would say, "Why do you need a diagnosis? You just want a label. You just want this." That's not what it's about. Like, when you finally know, then you can start finding the right resources. You can't treat the disease if you don't know what the disease is. You can't just start taking every cure to try to figure out. But once you know, then you know what you need to start doing. Now, as far as support system goes, I'm very blessed. My wife is very supportive, and it was kind of troubling early on because there's a lot of adjustments that had to be made. But now, um, oh, she's great. Like,
Hmm.
she knows. Like, some days she's like, "I need you to stay in the car. Don't come in the grocery store with me." Like, some days she knows.
You make
And
it work.
yeah, some days she's like, "Babe, just stay home. I'll go pick
Hmm.
up the food tonight." Just, she knows. And like,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's good.
So I also want to, that reminded me of something. You know, what looks like irritation
Hmm.
to some people, and what would you tell people? There's your baby.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry. My
It's
wife just
okay.
came home for lunch, and
That's funny. That's it. Is that your baby? The baby one?
yeah, that's Goku, the little one.
Goku. um, I kind of wanted to highlight people that perhaps may perceive you as not caring. Because, for example,
Yeah.
like if you're with your wife and you're irritated all the time, right?
Hmm.
Or constantly, and let's say some days are better than others. Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
there has been times where she's like, "Do you care? Do you not care?"
Yeah,
Right?
that part is well, it was more difficult in the past than it is now, because
Mhm.
she knows now that, like, I definitely care. It's just some days I'm sure you've seen shirts that just say, I just can't. Like, some days I
Yeah.
just can't. Like, I can't, like, people some days, and it's
I can't people some days. That should be on a
yeah.
shirt.
So she gets it now. But in the past, it was a little rough because I definitely can appear like I don't care about people, or I want to
Mhm.
be left alone. But that's not the case. It's just, um, I understand my limits. And
Yeah.
now that I'm older, I'm 33, and I'm to the point now, I'm like, look, I mean, some days y'all just ain't gonna see me, and it is what it is. I have my mental health I got to look after. Like, I got a family I got to take care of. I have to be available.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a youth pastor. I have to be available for my youth group. I got to be
Mhm.
available for my church, but I can't be if I'm constantly burning myself out trying to cater to everyone else all the time. I gotta
Yeah.
take care of me.
Absolutely. And I would bet to say you're a good father and a good
Thank
husband
you.
according to your spouse, right? And your daughter. So
Right.
needless to say, even doing that on a daily, I'm sure it takes a lot of energy from you because
Yeah.
you are dealing with people that need things from you. And
Yeah.
regarding like the social aspect, one of the common things that are seen with people that are autistic is that you may not fully comprehend emotions. in people and
Ooh,
why people are a certain way emotionally. Can you talk
yeah.
a little bit about that and how that's affected you personally?
That's a tough one because,
Mhm.
as you know, I'm an extremely logical thinker like your husband. And I don't I don't I don't understand emotionally driven people because I feel like it just they just don't make sense
Mm,
in like in no way, shape, or form. Because maybe it's because I don't understand emotions very well. I also don't understand facial expressions too
mhm.
well. And that was funny because I asked my wife at least 475 times a day if she's okay. And I know she gets tired of it, but I can't tell. Like
Mhm.
yesterday, I walked up to her and I was like, "You good? You seem like something's on your mind." And she's like, "I'm literally just watching TV." And I'm like, I can't tell. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna ask as much as I can because I can't read it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll think somebody looks really angry and they're just like,
Mhm.
"I'm just hanging out," and I'm like, "Oh." So I feel
It's
like I
just my
offended
face.
them, and yeah, I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot. That's just my face, man. I don't know what you want me to do. So I try to tread lightly around people because I don't know what they're thinking. I can't tell what they're feeling. So I just try and be as polite as I can. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So that makes it
Well, and
interesting.
also you also have a little girl and people might perceive, oh, little girls are more emotional and like,
Yeah.
that's a big thing. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey in fatherhood and being autistic?
So funny enough, I actually wanted a daughter before I had a child.
Mhm.
I remember yeah, like most men want a son, but I was like, no, I want a daughter. And God gave me a daughter. And I get it. I get why. Because like I said, I'm a really logical thinker and having a little girl and a wife forces me to learn the emotional side, right?
Yeah, the
So,
balance.
yeah, as much as I want to like look at my daughter and say like quit crying, like rub some dirt on and get over it. I have to understand like she's a little girl. Like
Yeah.
she has emotions and she's more sensitive, and my wife, like, she's sensitive, and
Mhm.
i'm I'm doing a lot better. I mean, it doesn't help that I'm a veteran too, so to me
Right.
I'm just like,
Shut up, buttercup.
yeah, drink some water, take some Motrin, get over it. But that's not, I can't, I'm learning. I'm learning.
Yeah, it's a big learning curve, I would say, for like everybody involved, right?
Hmm.
Because I'm sure your wife has had to make adjustments and understanding you, and you've
Yeah.
also. I love that you're just like I'm learning because you can easily say I'm autistic, I don't get it. It is what it is. It's a part of the program, and you can just
Yeah.
easily move forward.
Yeah.
So can you give a word of encouragement or maybe some advice to our audience for people that do believe or they may have an inclination that they're super
Yeah.
logical,
Yeah.
may fall into the autistic thing? Like, is it possible to learn and gain those skills?
Yeah, I think the older you get, the calmer you get, and the more you start to understand that just everything's a process, man. Like I could have easily gotten my diagnosis and shut down and said, you know what, like you said, this is it, it is what it is, y'all deal with it. But that's not how life works. Like there's
Mhm.
other people in the world and you have to be able to maneuver around these people. So if anyone is out there that's watching this, that you may have ideas that you might be autistic and everything, never stop learning,
Mhm.
because as much as it's difficult to be social, there's always ways around it. Like there's ways that you can still take care of yourself and others around you. A lot of times you're going to have to mask, right? You're going to have to fake it till you make it, but you're still treating other people around you well. Like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, the goal is love, and you still love the people around you enough to say, I can do better every day. I had a bad day yesterday, I'm having a better day today. Like just
Yeah.
keep learning, keep trying.
And I love how you said that because I think, especially like in America, we have a culture and a society that like everybody now has a diagnosis. Everybody now like
Yeah.
needs to be catered to, and we got to change.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that we shouldn't, as a society, be more mindful and cognizant. I'm a therapist. I care about these things, obviously,
Right.
But it's also very important to have people understand that you also need to take ownership for your own mental health, because your
Exactly.
mental health is your own.
Yeah.
And by living in this world, by being in any type of relationship, you're accountable to each other for your actions,
Yep.
whether I have full control over the way that I function or not. You
Mm-hmm.
know, in your case, it's autism. In my case, I have PTSD. There are some very
Yeah.
real things that set me off, and they could be
Yeah.
minor to some, right?
Yeah.
But to other people, and I can't place that on my husband. I can't place my mental health on other people and say, you need to adjust to me all the time, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
adjust to each other. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that is a big thing that we're missing, because in the media, again, like everything is let's cater to everybody else, and in parenting, let's
Yeah.
cater everything to the child. And we're like, we forget that this
Yeah.
child also has to be raised to be an adult. And what kind of world are we preparing them for? Right.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
so,
So, oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, like, can you discuss a little bit about taking ownership, and also
Yeah.
in being in relationship with other people?
So you mentioned PTSD. Funny story. I have that also.
Right.
So when I when I got diagnosed, my doctor was like, "You have potentially like one of the most volatile combinations of conditions."
Right.
And like you said with PTSD, there's just some things that set you off, and that's just how it is. However, like I said earlier, there's always that learning curve, right? So when they're say like I get pretty stressed out in crowded places, right? But sometimes you got to go to crowded places. Like you can't just close yourself off and hide. Like you have to get out there and do things. And sometimes it'll be at the detriment of yourself. But again, at the end of the day, the goal is love. And if I want my family to feel loved, then I got to put myself on the back burner. So people have to understand, especially being a man. I don't know if this is okay, but there aren't enough
Go ahead.
men
Be
anymore.
yourself. Be
There
open.
aren't
What'd you
enough
say?
men. There's
Okay.
not enough men anymore. Like men are turning into women. They're feminized. They don't know how to lead a family. They don't know how to take care of people. They don't know how to love their neighbor. They just don't know.
Mm,
And it's like you can't just shut down and only care about yourself. You gotta if you're a male and you're watching this, you gotta be able to say, okay, look, I'm the man of my family, I'm the leader of my household. I still have responsibilities. Yes, I have PTSD. Yes, I have autism. That doesn't mean that my responsibilities are for some reason skirted off to the side just because I have stuff I got to deal with. No,
right.
you still got to take care of life, and you can't not do that. You got to take care of your children. You got to take care of your pets. You got to take care of your household.
Mhm.
You got to do it. You got to find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to say that, here, obviously being on this podcast, we care about mental health and we care
Yeah,
about, your well-being, but a part of your well-being is also integrating and with other people.
yeah,
It's learning the balance between, okay, when is it me and when is
yeah,
it the other person? And
yeah.
how do we find that balance in between,
Mm-hmm.
I can easily, like, with my family and having PTSD, I'm sure they've like, oh, she's changed so much. And I think it's because I can't be in loud settings like that anymore. My family's loud all the time. I have a social limit.
Right.
I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Same here.
and I completely get that. Like, I understand.
Mhm.
And so, but I can't all the time be like, no, I can't go. No, I don't want to be, because if
Right.
I care about having a relationship with my family,
Yeah.
I have to give sometimes, and I have to be uncomfortable sometimes,
Exactly.
for the sake of others. And too often, I think, especially in the mental health realm, we teach people a lot about, oh, protect your mental health, set boundaries for yourself, and all these other things. But
Mhm.
we also don't set enough emphasis on, well, you need to put a boundary on yourself for your limitations,
Yeah.
right? If I have a
Yeah.
tendency to get mad all the time, I'm going to put a boundary for myself that when I'm mad, I'm going to give myself X amount of time to deal with it, and then I got to move on, right? Like,
Yeah. 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 The boundaries are very important because if you don't have them, you're going to constantly find yourself in situations that are detrimental to your mental health, and it'll be your fault
yeah,
because like you said earlier, you got to figure out at some point, is it me or is it them? And it's
right,
not always them.
correct.
A lot of the times it's you because um I tell my youth group this all the time because a lot of them have like ADHD and stuff like that.
Mhm.
and they use it as a crutch to say, oh, I can't pay attention because I have ADHD, or I have autism, so I can't do this. Like, no,
Mhm.
man, that's not, you can't, it's not a crutch. You
Mhm.
can't use it as a crutch. And I'm glad I found out as an adult, because I think if I would have found out when I was young, I probably would have used it as a crutch, being real. I probably would have,
Yeah.
used it to say, oh, I need extra help with my schoolwork. And it's just, no, I just don't want to do it. Like,
Right.
I would have done that. But now I understand, like, you can't, like you said, going to like family get togethers or whatever. Early on, when I found out, I was like, no, I don't think it's a good idea for me to go to this cookout or whatever, because I don't feel good today. But it's like, well, look, man, you got to do what you got to do. If you want to have a
Mhm.
relationship with these people, you got to make it work.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned too, like about, people using things as a crutch because,
Hmm.
especially my husband being an educator
Yeah, he
all the
knows.
time. He
He
talks about
knows.
it all the time. And it's just like, almost to the point where he's just like, I don't know if I believe in mental health anymore. Now he's being extreme, but
Yeah, yeah,
he said like everybody has a diagnosis now. All the kids
yeah,
have a 504 plan, all the kids have ADHD. And it's like, at what point again do we teach our children like, yes, you have a limitation, but it's just that it doesn't
yeah,
mean you are physically or mentally incapable, depending on the severity, of course,
yeah, for sure.
but it doesn't mean, oh, I'm just going to accept it and whatever and everybody else has to adjust to me, because the truth is that our limitations do impact other people negatively sometimes, and we have to take
Yeah,
ownership of that. Like,
yeah.
I can't blame my kid for being a kid. He's loud. He's a toddler. He
Hmm.
screams. My baby screams. And I hate loud noises, literally. And
Right.
when it happens consistently and I'm triggered, I want to choke him. Like, that is the truth, right? Like, it's just, but
Yeah.
I cannot be mad at him because I'm triggered, because that is something that is
Right.
my responsibility. So I have to remove myself from the situation or tell my husband,
Exactly.
hey, you need to step in because I just can't right now, right?
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
very real thing. I could easily say, "No, I can go off on my toddler and I can be mad
Yeah.
and I can do whatever I want to him because I have PTSD."
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Some people do that. And they do that not only, like, with their children, they do that in just society. Like, I'm sure you've seen like videos on the internet where somebody gets pulled over for a regular traffic ticket and they're spazzing out because they're special and
Mhm.
they deserve this sort of treatment. And it's like, you got to take responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah.
You have to. You have
Yeah.
to be able to keep stuff in check. Like, there's ways for you to keep stuff in check. For years, I was unmedicated for my PTSD because
Right.
the side effects of the medication oftentimes were worse than what I was dealing with PTSD.
Yeah.
Now, however, I have a family. I
Mhm.
got, friends that I consider family. Like, there's people whose lives I want to be a part of. And
Mhm.
in order for that to take place, look, I might just have to take the medication to make it work. And those are things that you got to be willing to do, to say, okay, I have to make this work. I can't just sit back and ask for sympathy and all this stuff and lash out at people and expect everybody to be okay with it. No,
Right.
can't do that.
Yeah. You can easily say I'm emotionally unavailable because I have autism. You can easily
Right.
say
Easily. Very
that.
easily. Like, it's so easy that I keep that card in my back pocket. Like,
What do you
I'm like,
mean?
nah, it's a my wife, she often says like, oh, you're having a tism day today, huh? Like, she'll just joke with me because, like, she knows some days, like, hey, he's not with it today. And
Mhm.
she's a great support system. But yeah, it's just sometimes, man, you just can't.
Yeah.
But you have
No,
to.
and it's so true. I think that like and almost sometimes I'm gonna ask you this question because I'm curious.
Hmm.
Do sometimes when people are emotional, does it trigger you? Does it make you upset?
um yeah, because I don't understand. So it's situational, right? Like,
Mhm.
if somebody's mourning the loss of a loved one, obviously I'm
Mhm.
not going to get upset about that. But if, like, somebody's just losing their marbles for something that, at least in my mind, I'm like, it doesn't make sense for you to act like that. I get upset because I don't understand the bypass of logic. How do you go
Mhm.
from situation happens, skip logic, straight rage? I don't get the thought process. Like, you can see it.
Mhm.
You drive into town, people are making really simple, dumb mistakes on the road. And it's like, you wouldn't make those mistakes if you were just logical enough to say, hey, I want to make it from point A to point B. But they don't think like that. It's emotional. It's, I need what I want and I want it now. It's instant gratification. And
Mm.
you see, I just listed all of that from a simple thought for no reason. Like, yes, I get upset when people are emotional.
You created steps. You created
Yes.
steps to the problem.
Yeah.
So,
That's,
is there a balance between logic and emotion for you, or do you kind of have to kind of think through it? Because I'm sure, like, in not to make it personal, but your wife
yeah.
is the best example I can think of because
Yeah.
she is sensitive, right? And
Yeah.
so, is there a balance, or do you kind of like have to learn with the curve? Do you guys argue about that stuff? Because I know for my relationship we do, and I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, like, I know you're very logical, but let's, can you see how that was
Yeah.
rude? You know?
We, yeah, that exact conversation. Yeah. Um, we've, we've had differences about that before. And, like I said, I am 110% willing to learn a better way. So
Mhm.
I'm slowly starting to get to the point where, I will, I've, I've created like a mental dam when it comes to my logic. And, I understand now that, hey, sometimes you just got to listen a little more and just let the emotion be there. It doesn't always call for logic. Sometimes, like you mentioned my wife, sometimes she just wants to vent. I
Yeah.
don't have to provide a solution. Like,
I
in
think
my
that's a
head,
man thing. I don't know if that's an
yeah,
autism thing or a man thing.
I don't know, but either way, I realize that y- there's a better way, and you got to learn that people are emotional, and you can't turn their emotions off like a light switch. You
Mhm.
That's another thing. People often think that autistic people are like, we lack emotion.
Mhm.
Um, we definitely don't. It's the opposite. We feel emotions, I think, way stronger than neurotypical people. And it
Mhm.
can be dangerous because if it's a negative emotion, we feel it
Mhm.
way stronger.
Yeah.
And if it's a positive emotion, we feel it way stronger to the point where, it affects us socially because,
Mhm.
uh, when I'm in a social setting, I have to 100% of the time, as long as I'm there, manage my reactions and stuff because I'm
Mm.
trying to fake it till I make it. So I'm like, okay, make sure you don't overreact to this simple joke. Make sure you don't underreact to this terrible news, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, the emotional aspect of it is difficult. It's difficult to say the least. It's playing life on hard mode for sure.
Yeah, it must be hard to balance though too, like where you always constantly feel like you have to mask and you
Yeah.
can't, be yourself, because I think a lot of the time people might associate that you don't have a reaction to, oh, well, he just doesn't care, right?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
Yeah.
And
Like
that's not necessarily true.
there was this one time where my neighbor that lives behind us, she was upset because, there was like some branches coming over the fence or whatever. And, she's told me about it like 50 times, but I'm just like, I don't have a hacksaw. I can't do anything about it. And
Yeah.
they're on your side. So, that's kind of for you to cut. So
Mhm.
she sees my wife one day and she's like, I've told your husband about these branches, but he just doesn't care. And I'm like, I didn't mean to come off like I didn't care, but I mean, that's, sorry, I guess. I never told her I didn't care. She just assumed it because of, I guess, my demeanor. But
Mhm.
I'm not an overreactor. I'm just not. And I think a lot of that has to do with the autism because some things just don't register that I should react a certain way. In fact,
Mhm.
I would say 99% of things make, like, either give me no reaction or, a disproportionate reaction in the low side.
Mhm.
like even to life-threatening events. I just don't. I just this is the face I'm making. Like there was a
Mhm.
time where when I was working at a game store, guy comes in with a gun, puts the gun right in my face and robs the place. And I'm
Mhm.
just looking at him like, like it is what it is. I'm not freaking out or anything. I can't overreact. I don't know.
Right. Right. And so, but what were you thinking at that time?
Um at the time I was just like, well, if he shoots me, he shoots me. I just like it's whatever. I didn't break a sweat or nothing. That's just how my my thoughts work. And I think that's a strength because in a lot of areas, like in the military,
Mhm.
overreact and get you killed.
Right.
So you can't overreact to in my eyes, you can't overreact to anything. You can't. And
Mhm.
the autism helps with that because I oftentimes emotionally daft. I'll
Yeah.
put it like that. Yeah.
What do you mean by that? For those that don't know what
Like
that means.
it's like I don't understand how to use my emotions correctly, so
Okay.
I will just suppress them.
Mm.
And to me that makes sense. But,
Mhm.
to a neurotypical person that's just like, oh, he's cold and unfeeling, but
Mhm.
I think it helps with problem solving
Yeah.
and it helps with critical thinking and it's just helpful.
Absolutely. And I think I learned a lot, I think, from our conversations. You and I have had conversations before, and then like my conversations with my husband, because he is extremely logical. Like, with situations
Yeah.
that I would be, react a certain way, he'd look at me like, why are you reacting like that? Right. And I've had to
Yep.
stop and explain to him, okay, this is socially acceptable, right? Or
Right.
this is, why someone can perceive what you're doing is like a big thing for him. Like, oh, I don't answer
Mhm.
back to text messages, doesn't like small talks, right? Like,
Right. Right.
he won't even respond to me sometimes, and I'm his wife. I can't
I'm
take
guilty
that
of that.
personally.
Yeah, I'm
It's just a
guilty of
part of
that.
it. But I
Yeah.
love that I think that people can learn and we can cohabit together when you have someone that's very emotional. Again,
Yeah.
I'm a therapist, that's what I do, right? And
Right,
somebody
right.
that's very logical, and marry the two, right? Because I
Mhm.
can learn so much that, what, everything isn't about emotions, and I've learned how to balance my emotions with logic because of how he breaks things down, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've had those discussions, and he's like, okay, what made you upset? No, no, exactly. What did I do to make you upset? Can you tell me exactly the situation? What did I
He might wanna go ahead and go get checked because he sounds just like me.
I know,
He
that's why I
sounds
said
just like me. Yeah.
I tell
Yep.
him all the time, but he won't, you know how he is. But it helps to understand because then I have to step back and be like, "Oh, am I just reacting on purely emotion or is there something backing
Yeah.
this?" Right?
Yeah.
And so when you have something backing it, then that's how you know it's valid versus, "Oh,
Mhm.
I'm just mad and I'm projecting something on you because I'm mad." Right?
Yeah. I think because of, the autism, I always think that someone's overreacting unjustly. I
Mhm.
always think there's no reason for what they're doing. And, like I said, learning, as the days go on, that's not true. Like,
Mhm.
for the same reason I might get upset about something and think in my mind that I have a completely logical reason why I'm upset. That person thinks the same thing. And who am I to
Mhm.
downplay what they're feeling just because my brain doesn't work like theirs?
Yeah.
I can't do that. So I now I seek to understand as much as I possibly can. And I just I don't know, I just try and be sympathetic.
Mhm. Which could
Yeah.
be hard, right? I'm assuming because
Extremely, extremely.
sympathy requires me to understand how you're feeling,
Yeah,
right?
and I don't understand, like, the as far as, like, socially, I can understand 2 things. If, like, you're smiling really big, I'm like, "Oh, that person's happy," right? If someone's frowning to the point where their face is just, like, completely scrunched up, then I'm like, "Okay, that person's mad." Anything in
Mhm.
between that, it's beyond me. I don't know.
Right.
So, Yeah, no, it makes life very hard, and I would encourage people to get diagnosis. The sooner the better,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, because you can learn, how to work with it, right? And
Yeah,
stop wondering, "What's wrong with me?" Right? Or is there something
yeah.
wrong? And so if there's anything that you can have our audience take,
Hmm.
from our session today, what is that
Hmm.
one thing you would wanna leave them with?
Keep God first. Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. Also, I had to take the opportunity, you know. Uh, also, I would tell them to if the person already has a diagnosis, don't stop learning how to be better, right? Don't stop trying to be social, because when you shut yourself away, you've lost, and you can't, especially if you have a family, you got people that count on you. You can't do that. You can't shut yourself away. So continue learning how to be better. And for people who don't have the diagnosis, I would just say get one and read other people's testimonies, right? Because you'd be surprised. A lot of people, or I think over 90% of the testimonies that I read sounded exactly like my life. So it's not difficult to find the information, but you've got to do your part. Like I ended up going to the public library and checking out a DSM-5, and I just started reading it. Like, and I was like, oh, this is me. So
Mhm.
you got to do your part, because nobody's gonna do it for you.
Absolutely. And is there
Yeah.
anything you would like to say to our minorities, audience?
Oof,
Yeah.
man. So I work with youth, you know. Um, so I would address the youth who would listen to this. Understand that there very well could be something off with your mental health, and that's okay. That
Mhm,
doesn't make you any less, and I'm saying this from personal experience, that doesn't make you any less black. Okay, because fun story, I was ousted by my own community because I was so different, right?
mhm.
Black guy in school, captain of the soccer varsity team, um, loves anime, video games. No, I don't wear
You don't fit the
J's.
box, so what are you
No, I
talking
didn't fit the box, right? So I couldn't be one of them. And
Mhm.
it's like, y'all, that's okay. Because culturally, you don't want to be one. You know what I mean? Like the culture's suffering. So understand that you you very well, regardless of what the culture says about your mental health, you owe it to yourself and to your family to get that taken care of. Don't let cultural norms hold you back from taking care of your health. That would be like saying, oh, it's in our culture to smoke cigarettes, so you should never stop.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So
Mhm.
take care of your health. Take care of yourself. You have to. You owe it to
Absolutely.
yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely, and sometimes to heal and sometimes to get to where you wanna be, you have to let go of those stigmas, those norms, those
Yep.
cultural, religious, anything, you
Yep.
really, let go of those and actually seek healing, and
Mm-hmm.
so I love that you said that, but I really appreciate your vulnerability and your openness today,
No
for our
problem.
audience, and I just thank you for being here.
Not an issue. I wish you all the best of luck. And your setup looks really good. So
Thank
good job on what you're
you.
doing.